but feel it instead. And guilt invariably produces that sort of reaction. It is a destructive emotion. And instead, we need to have a different attitude to our mistakes and to our misdeeds. Walt Whitman always admired animals because they do not lie awake and weep for their sins. Animals are practical in the real sense, as are children who haven't been taught this extraordinary hang-up of guilt. Because if you've done something wrong or you have made a mistake, and somebody makes you ashamed of it and guilty, you run around licking the sores of your wounded ego because you feel your pride has been hurt. The first thing to understand is that it is not a serious failing in a human being to make mistakes. Everybody has to make mistakes. There is no way out of it. You can't learn anything unless you make mistakes. So likewise, I know a very great anthropologist who was taught music, playing the piano in the same way I was. When I was taught music, the school mom who taught me used to put an India rubber, an eraser it's called in this country, on the top of each hand so that I would have my hands in good posture. And every time I'd play a wrong note, she'd hit my fingers with a pencil. And this great anthropologist had had a similar sort of musical education. And when confronted with a piano in the presence of an absolutely marvelous teacher in San Francisco, she said she was amazed. He was completely incapable of reading notes. He blocked at everything. So another great teacher of the piano I knew said simply, "You must not be afraid of playing wrong notes. Just forget it. Play it wrong. And then eventually go over it again and you'll eventually get it right. But you must not block. Always keep the same rhythm going, even if you have to slow it down. But keep the proportionate rhythm of one note to another. And if it's the wrong note, play the wrong note, as long as you play something in the right rhythm." So, this is a way of taking away people's blockage, people's guilt and shame about making mistakes. So freedom means, basically, the freedom to make mistakes. The freedom to be a damn fool. And then not to recriminate with yourself when you do finally realize that it was a mistake, but simply don't do it again. Or at least do it less often. It is well recognized that people who get the knowledge that you're it may very well run amok. And therefore they always couple any method of gaining this, whether it is yoga, whether it is smoking something or drinking something or whatever is the method, they always couple it with a discipline. Now I know the word discipline isn't very popular these days. And I would like to have a new word for it, because most people who teach disciplines don't teach them very well. They teach it with a kind of violence, as if a discipline was something that is going to be extremely unpleasant and that you're going to have to put up with. But that's not the real secret of discipline. I would prefer to use the word skill. Discipline is a way of expression. Say you want to express your feelings in stone. Now, stone doesn't give way very easily. It's tough stuff. And so you have to learn the skill or the discipline of the sculptor in order to express yourself in stone. So in every other way, whatever you do, you require a skill. And it's enormously important to understand that there is absolutely no possibility of having any pleasure in life at all without skill. Money doesn't buy pleasure, ever. Look, if you want to get stone drunk and go out and get a bottle of bourbon and down it, you can't do that except for people who have practiced the distiller's art. You can't even make love without art. Where I live in Sausalito, we have a harbor full of ever so many pleasure craft. Motor cruisers, sailing boats, all kinds of things. And they never leave the dock. All that happens with them is their owners have cocktail parties there on Saturdays and Sundays. Because they discovered, having bought these things, that the discipline of sailing is difficult to learn and takes a lot of time. And they didn't have time for it, so they just bought the thing as a status symbol. So, in other words, you can't have pleasure in life without skill. But it isn't an unpleasant task to learn a skill. If the teacher, in the first place, gets you fascinated with it, there is immense pleasure in learning how to do anything skillfully. To make carpentry things, to cook, to write, to calculate, anything you want. It can be immensely pleasurable to learn the discipline. And it is completely indispensable. Because look, you may be a very inspired musician. I'm not a musical technologist, you see, and I regret it, but I'm a word technologist. But I can hear in my head all kinds of symphonies and all kinds of marvelous compositions, but I don't have the technique to write them down on paper and share them with somebody else. Too bad. Maybe next time around. But you see, so far as words are concerned, I can express ideas because I have studied language. And I work very hard. Not that I didn't like it, I intensely enjoy the work of writing a book, although it is difficult. But it's fascinating to say what can never possibly be said. So, you see what's happening. What you have to do, you have inspiration, but then you have to have technique to incarnate, to express your inspiration. That is to say, to bring heaven down to earth. And to express heaven in terms of earth. Of course, they are really one behind the scenes. But there's no way of pointing it out unless you do something skillful. You see, we are all, at the moment, absolutely in the midst of the beatific vision. We are all one with the divine, or some, I don't like that sort of wishy-washy language, but we are all there. But we are so much there that we're like fish in water. They don't know they're in water. Like the birds don't know they're in the air because it's all around them. And the same way we don't know what the color of our eyes is. I don't mean whether you've got blue or brown eyes, but the color of the lens of your eye. You call that transparent. No color. See, because you can't see it. But it's basic to being able to see anything. So in order to find out where you are, there has to be some way of drawing attention to it. And that involves skill.
Hard to believe that Mint Mobile can get any better, but really all it takes is a little imagination.
Now, we come here right at the start to an extremely important principle, which is the different points of view you get when you change your level of magnification. That is to say, you can look at something with a microscope and see it a certain way. You can look at it with the naked eye and see it in a certain way. You look at it with a telescope and you see it in another way. Now, which level of magnification is the correct one? Well, obviously, they're all correct. They're just different points of view. You can, for example, look at a newspaper photograph under a magnifying glass, and where with the naked eye you will see a human face, with the magnifying glass you will just see a profusion of dots, rather meaninglessly scattered. But as you stand away from that connection of dots, which all seem to be separate and apart from each other, they suddenly arrange themselves into a pattern. And you see that these individual dots add up to some kind of sense. Now you'll see at once from this illustration that maybe you, when you take a myopic view of yourself, as most of us do, but you may add up to some kind of sense that is not apparent to you in your ordinary consciousness. When we examine our bloodstreams under a microscope, we see there's one hell of a fight going on. All sorts of microorganisms are chewing each other up. And if we got overly fascinated with our view of our own bloodstreams in the microscope, we should start taking sides, which would be fatal, because the health of our organism depends on the continuance of this battle. What is, in other words, conflict at one level of magnification is harmony at a higher level. Now, could it possibly be, therefore, that we, with all our problems, conflicts, neuroses, sicknesses, political outrages, wars, tortures, and everything that goes on in human life, are a state of conflict which can be seen in a larger perspective as a situation of harmony? Well, it is claimed, you see, that some human beings have broken through to that vision, that they've slipped somehow or other into states of consciousness where they see the apparent disintegration and disorganization of everyday life as the functioning of a totality which at its level is completely harmonious. And you could say, aha, at last I see, I got the point. I've seen how all this makes sense.
We need to have a clear conscience toward God. We need to have a clear conscience toward our family. We need to be able to walk into a battle not with unresolved issues before God and before people. We need to have a clear conscience. And the Bible says that if we don't deal with the matters of our conscience, we can sear our conscience. Do you know what that means? Sear it like with a hot iron. Deaden the conscience. Take away the sensitivity of it so that what happens to us that used to bother us doesn't bother us anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, to be victorious in the war against the enemy in our culture and in our generation, it demands not only that we know some truth, but it demands that we live the truth, that there's truthfulness in us. We've learned that our enemy with whom we are involved in mortal combat is none other than Satan himself. As we learn his names, we also learn he's a powerful enemy who not only is a ruler and a prince, but as we learn, he's the God of this age. The Bible speaks of the wiles of Satan, so we know he's armed with many strategies. He wants to deceive us, for he is the great deceiver. He wants to deceive us because he wants to divide us. He is the great divider. And he wants to divide us because he is the great divider, and ultimately he wants to destroy us. He wants to deceive us, to divide us, so that ultimately he can destroy us. Now, his ultimate goal, as we have learned, is destruction. He deceives and he divides in order that he might destroy. His purpose is that he might cast every one of us into a Christless hell so that we'll be separated from God forever. And since he cannot do that if we are believers who have put our trust in Christ, his second plan is to drown that testimony that God has given us and keep us from being useful to the Lord, perhaps even being destructive in the Christian faith. But we are not left helpless against this enemy. We have learned that. And the Bible is teaching us that there is a way for us to be victorious. We are not left helpless because 1 John 4:4 says, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Who is in us? Christ. Who is in the world? Satan. John tells us that the one who is in us is greater than the one who is in the world. And with Christ living in us, we are able to resist the devil. And when we resist him in the power of Christ, he has to leave us. Resisting the devil in the power of Christ is what the apostle means when he tells us in Ephesians to put on the whole armor of God. And in this armor, there are 6 pieces. 5 of these pieces are defensive, and 1 is offensive. All 6 of these pieces of armor are necessary. No part of our life can be left unprotected or exposed. The Bible doesn't tell us to choose 4 or 5 out of these pieces of armor, whichever ones we want, and to implement them. No, we are told to put on, notice, the whole armor of God. Any piece of armor we refuse to use will leave us unguarded in some vulnerable place, and
Everybody should do in their lifetime sometime 2 things. 1 is to consider death, to observe skulls and skeletons, and to wonder what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Never. That is a very gloomy thing for contemplation, but it's like manure. Just as manure fertilizes the plants and so on, so the contemplation of death and the acceptance of death is very highly generative of creative life. You get wonderful things out of that. And the other thing to contemplate is to follow the possibility of the idea that you are totally selfish. That you don't have a good thing to be said for you at all. You are a complete, utter rascal. Now, when you go deeply into the nature of selfishness, what do you discover? You say, I love myself, I seek my own advantage. Now, what is the self that I love? What do I want? And that becomes an increasingly ever-deepening puzzle. Now, I've often referred to this when you say to somebody else, I love you. It's always rather disconcerting to the person to whom you say that. If you imply that you love them with a pure, disinterested, and holy love, they automatically suspect it as being a little bit phony. But if you say, I love you so much I could eat you, that's an expression, it's a way of saying to a person, you attract me so much that I can't help it. I'm absolutely bowled over by you, I'm gone. And people like that. Then they feel they're really being loved, that it's absolutely genuine. But now, I love you so much I could eat you. Now what the devil do I want? I certainly don't want to eat the girl in the sense of literally devouring her, because then she'd disappear. But I love myself. Now, what is me? In what way do I know me? Well, it suddenly occurs to me that I know me only in terms of you. And that the main task of the psychotherapist is to do what he called to integrate the evil. To, as it were, put the devil in us in its proper function. Because you see, it's always the devil, the unacknowledged one, the outcast, the scapegoat, the bastard, the bad guy, you see, the black sheep of the family. It's always from that point that generation comes. In other words, in the same way as in the drama, to have the play, it's necessary to introduce a villain. It's necessary to introduce a certain element of trouble. So, in the whole scheme of life, there has to be the shadow. Because without the shadow, there can't be the substance.
Why LA women aren't going to the gym? I'm out here asking people who look fit what they do for their diets.
Without the shadow, there can't be the substance. So this is why there is a very strange association between crime and all naughty things and holiness. Well, you see, holiness is way beyond being good. Good people aren't necessarily holy people. A holy person is one who is whole, who has, as it were, reconciled his opposites. And so there's always something slightly scary about holy people. And other people react to them in very strange ways. They can't make up their minds whether they're saints or devils. And so holy people have throughout history always created a great deal of trouble, along with their creative results. Take Jesus, for example. Trouble that Jesus created is absolutely incalculable. Think of the Crusades, the Inquisition, heaven only knows what's gone on in the name of Jesus. Very remarkable. Freud's a big troublemaker. That nobody can be completely honest. That you will try and you'll have a great deal of success in exploring your motivations and your dark, unconscious depths. But there will be a certain point at which you will say, well, I've had enough of that. Do you see how, in a strange way, there's a certain sanity in that? When a person indulges in a certain kind of duplicity, of deception, there is something, you all laughed when I said that. There was something humorous about it. And this humor is a very funny thing. Basically, humor is an attitude of laughter about oneself. There is malicious humor, which is laughing at other people. But real deep humor is laughter at oneself. Now, why fundamentally do you laugh about yourself? What makes you laugh about yourself? Isn't it because you know that there is a big difference? The moment you take a journey, what an act of faith. The moment you enter into any kind of human undertaking in relationship, what an act of faith. See, you've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing to be done. Surrender. See, and love is an act of surrender to another person. Total abandon. I give myself. Take, do anything you like. So, that's quite bad, because you see, it's letting things get out of control. All sensible people keep things in control. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Security, vigilance.
Okay, everybody, welcome to Republican Chicago. This is Rumble. This is my first time creating a Rumble video, so thank you for being here. You can see I'm live streaming myself across about 15 different cell phones. We vote Trump, we vote Republican. If we can't vote Trump, we can't vote Republican, we'll vote for Kennedy. It's just me. If Trump could be president and Kennedy could be vice president and then Kennedy could become president, I mean, that's the ship we need to write. 8 years of pragmatism, 8 years of paying down the debt and getting the financial ship righted, and then eventually eventually getting rid of the Federal Reserve and all the Fugazi congressional amendments. So thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed my first Rumble podcast. I'm here with Ishmael. He can identify himself if he wants to. Okay, I guess he does. It's Zach De La Ruta. And he's apparently on the phone right now, but... Oh, no, he's here. So, Zach, you're now live on my Rumble. This is called Republican Chicago. If you want to invite people to the room, this is the Jewish Clown Academy in the Clown Podcast. Go to clownpodcast.com for more. Or go to hypnosiscommunication.com for more. Or republicanchicago.com for more. So, Zach, we were talking about... what were we talking about? Oh, you were talking about the Portnoy statement. What was it? Amplified senses. Everything is amplified. Even the... I'm going to give up your lead.
The moment you take a journey, what an act of faith. The moment you enter into any kind of human undertaking and relationship, what an act of faith. See, you've given yourself up. But this is the most powerful thing that can be done. Surrender. See, and love is an act of surrender to another person. Total abandon. I give myself. Take, do anything you like. So, between what goes on the outside and what goes on the inside. Now, I passed you around a lot of embroidery to look at before we start. And I'm perfectly sure that you got the point. That there's a big difference between the front and the back. In some forms of embroidery, the back is very different from the front because people take shortcuts. In the front, everything is orderly, and it is supposed to be kind of messy on the back side. See, which side will you wear? You've got to be sure you get the front in the front, have the back in the back. The back has all the little tricks in it, all the shortcuts, all the lowdown that people don't acknowledge, see? And it's exactly the same with the way we live. You know, like sweeping the dust under the carpet in a hurry just before the guests come. I mean, we do ever so many things like that. And if you don't do it, if you don't think you do it, and you think, well, really, my embroidery is the same on both sides, see? Well, you're deceiving yourself. Because what you're doing is you're taking the shortcuts in another dimension, which you're keeping out of consciousness. Everybody takes the shortcuts. Everybody plays tricks. Everybody has in himself an element of duplicity, of deception. Because you see, from this point of view that I'm discussing, where the web is the trap, to be is to deceive.
Have you ever felt God calling you to real estate investing to fund His kingdom? Spend more time with your family?
Think of camouflage. The chameleon who changes its color. Think of the butterfly pretending it has eyes. Think of the flower saying to the bee, like my honey. The bee says, wow. But then that means that the bee has to be, and it has to go on living, and all the trouble it takes to go around collecting honey and raising other bees and organizing itself and doing that dance which tells the other bees where there's more honey. There's all that stuff to do. But the flower was deceptive. Now, in the same way I've often said, life is a drama, and a drama is a deception. It's a big act. When you peel an onion and you don't really understand the nature of an onion, you might look for the pit in the center, like any ordinary fruit has. But the onion doesn't have a center. It's all skins. So when you get right down, there's nothing but a bunch of skins. You say, well, that was kind of disappointing. Well, in rather the same way, you see, you find when you explore yourself, and your motivations, and you go through and you try to find out that thing which is really genuine. So you explore the onion, and you go in and in and in, and then you find, well, it's all a deception. Now then the question arises, who's deceiving who? Who's fooling who? I'm fooling me? What is fooling? Fooling is playing like you're there when you're not. You know, getting somebody else to answer your name in the roll call. So, we're all, you see, this is the metaphysical basis of it. This is what the Hindus mean by Maya, the world illusion. The world is playing it's there when it isn't. And it's a trap. And it sucks you in. And you can't get out of it. And it's a thorough big trap too. But always, when you get an idea like this or a feeling like this, follow it to its extreme. Don't back out from it. If you find you're selfish, go to the extreme of what selfishness means. Confusion largely results from not following feelings or ideas to their depth. You know, people think they want to be immortal. They'd like to live forever. Do you really want to do that? Think about it. Really go into it, what it would be like. People say they want this, that, and the other. They want this kind of car, they want this kind of dress, or so on, and this much money, and so on. It's always a good idea to think it right through. What it would involve, be in that situation, to have those desires fulfilled. Also, when you form a relationship to another person, think it through too. You see? How inconvenient would they be? However attractive. And always turn the embroidery around and look at the underside, but don't get caught doing it. See, that's something one does on the side in secret. Because otherwise you play the game that everything is as it's supposed to be on the front. But that makes you humorous, and that makes you human.
Feels like a dream, feels like magic.
It's magic. I'm a billionaire. I got Chinese plastic.
The whole conception of nature is as a self-regulating, self-governing, indeed democratic organism. But it has a totality. It all goes together, and this totality is the Tao. When we speak in Taoism of following the course of nature, following the way, what it means is more like this. Doing things in accordance with the grain. It doesn't mean you don't cut wood, but it means that you cut wood along the lines where wood is most easy to cut. And this, then, is the great fundamental principle, which is called Wu Wei. Not to force anything. I think that's the best translation. It's often called not doing, not acting, not interfering, not to force. Seems to me to hit the nail on the head. Like, don't ever force a lock, or you bend the key or break the lock. You jiggle until it revolves. So Wu Wei is always to act in accordance with the pattern of things as they exist. don't impose on any situation a kind of interference that is not really in accordance with the situation. It would be better to do nothing than to interfere without knowing the system of relations that exists. It's terribly important then to have this feeling of the interdependence of every form of life upon every other form of life. You have to see that life, that the so-called conflict of various species with each other is not actually a competition. It's a very strange system of interrelationship, of things feeding on each other and cultivating each other at the same time. The idea of the friendly enemy, the necessary adversary, who is part of you. You have conflicts going on in your own body. All kinds of microorganisms are eating each other up. And if that wasn't happening, you wouldn't be healthy. So all those interrelationships, whether they appear to be friendly relationships as between bees and flowers, or conflicting relationships as between birds and worms, they are actually forms of cooperation. And that is mutual arising. You have to understand this as the basis, apply this, not forcing anything, and you get spontaneity. A life which is so of itself, which is natural, which is not forced, which is not unduly self-conscious.
Hello, I came to get another vaccine stuck in my tuchus. Okay, this is called Alan Watts Exploring Your Dark Side. Or it's called, actually, Let It Happen by itself. The YouTube account is called We Are, published 5 years ago. It's got 45.
Music, as an art form, is essentially playful. We say you play the piano. You don't work the piano. Why? Music differs from, say, travel. When you travel, you are trying to get somewhere. And of course, we, because being a very compulsive and purposive culture, are busy getting everywhere faster and faster and faster till we eliminate the distance between places. I mean, with the modern jet travel, you can arrive almost instantaneously. What happens as a result of that is that the two ends of your journey become the same place. So you eliminate the distance, and you eliminate the journey. Because the fun of the journey is to travel, not to obliterate travel. So then, in music, though, one doesn't make the end of a composition the point of the composition. If that was so, the best conductors would be those who played fastest. And there would be composers who wrote only finales. People go to concert just to hear one crashing chord, because that's the end. Same way in dancing. You don't aim at a particular spot in the room. That's where you should arrive. The whole point of the dancing is the dance. Look at the people who live to retire and put those savings away. And then when they're 65, they don't have any energy left, they're more or less impotent, and they go and rob in an old people's, senior citizens community. Because we simply cheated ourselves the whole way down the line. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, and the thing was to get to that end. success or whatever it is, or maybe heaven after you're dead.
Michelle, I'm really sorry.
But we missed the point the whole way along.
Oh, it's
It
you,
was a
Michelle.
musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played. But you had to do that thing. You didn't let it happen. And so, in this way, the human being sometimes becomes an organism for self-frustration. Let's take Korzybski called man a time binder. That means that he's the animal peculiarly aware of the time sequence. And as a result of this, is able to do some very remarkable things. He can predict. He studies what's happened in the past, and he says the chances are so-and-so of that happening again. So he predicts. It also is very useful to be able to predict, because that has survival value. But at the same time, it creates anxiety. You pay for this increased survival ability involved in prediction by knowing that in the end you won't succeed. They're all going to fall apart by one way or another. It might happen tomorrow, it might happen 50 years from now. But it all comes apart in the end. And people get worried about that, they get anxious. So what they gained on the roundabout, they lost on the swings. So then, if you see, on the other hand, that existence, this is, as I said, my basic metaphysical assumption, which I won't conceal from you, that existence is musical in nature. That is to say that it is not serious. It is a play of all kinds of patterns. We can look upon different creatures as we look at different games, as we look at chess, checkers, backgammon, tennis. There's the tree game, the beetle game, the grass game. Or you can look at them as you look at different styles of music, mazurkas, waltzes, sonata, etc., all down the line. There are all these different things doing their stuff. And we're doing that. Now, existence, you see, is something that is spontaneous. The Chinese word for nature, zizhan, means that which happens of itself. Your hair grows by itself. Your heart beats by itself. You breathe pretty much by itself. Your glands secrete their essences by themselves. You don't have voluntary control over these things. So we say it happens spontaneously. So when you go to sleep and you try to go to sleep, you interfere with the spontaneous process of going to sleep. Try to breathe, real hard, and you find you get balled up in your breathing. So, if you're going to be human, you just have to trust yourself to have bowel movements and go to sleep and digest your food. Of course, if something goes seriously wrong and you need a surgeon, that's another matter. But by and large, the healthy human being doesn't, right from the start of life, need surgical interference. And he lets it happen by itself. So with the whole picture, that is fundamental. You've got to let go and let it happen. Because if you don't, you're going to be all clutched up. You're going to be constantly trying to do what can happen healthily only if you don't try.
Ungawa! 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 Michelle just keeps coming back. You're incredible, Michelle. You're my number one fan. You're my number one listener. I'll never forget it until I forget it, Michelle.
So then, in the metaphysical sphere, the mystic is the one who feels. that everything that happens is in some way harmonious, is in some way right, is in some way an integral part of the universe. Now, when we transplant or translate that into the moral sphere, the sphere of human conduct, the equivalent is this: there are no wrong feelings. There may be wrong actions in the sense of actions contrary to the rules of human communication.
How?
But the way you feel towards other people, loving, hating, etc., etc., there aren't any wrong feelings. And so to try and force one's feelings to be other than what they are is absurd. And furthermore dishonest. But you see, the idea that there are no wrong feelings is an immensely threatening idea to people who are afraid to feel in any case. And this is one of the peculiar problems of our culture, that we are terrified of our feelings because they take off on their own. And we think that if we give them any scope, and if we don't immediately beat them down, they will lead us into all kinds of chaotic and destructive action. It's so funny that we, in our Western culture today, say that kind of thing. We who do more chaotic and reckless kind of action than anybody ever did. But if, for a change, we would allow our feelings and look upon their comings and goings as something as beautiful and as natural and necessary as changes in the weather, the going of night and day, and of the four seasons, we would be at peace with ourselves. Because what is problematic for Western man is not so much his struggles with other people and their needs and their problems as his struggle with his own feelings, with what he will allow himself to feel and what he won't allow himself to feel. He's ashamed to feel really profoundly sad, so much so that he could cry. It is not manly to cry. He's ashamed to loathe somebody because you are not supposed to hate people. He's ashamed to be so overcome with the beauty of something, whether it be a natural landscape or a member of the opposite sex, that he goes out of his mind with this beauty. Because all that kind of thing is not being in control, old boy. Not kind of having your hand on the wheel. But it is because we don't go with that that we are not in control. That we try to pretend that our inner life is different. So I think this is the most releasing thing that anybody can possibly understand. That your inner feeling is never wrong. That's to say, what you feel.
What are you laughing at, Pepper?
It's never wrong that you feel that way. It may not be a right guide to what you should do. In other words, if you feel that you hate someone intensely, it isn't necessarily the right way of dealing with that feeling to go out and cut his throat. But it is right that you should have the feeling. of hating, or of being sad, or of what? Frightened, terrified, whatever it is. For you see, when a person comes to himself, he comes to be one with his own feeling. And that is the only way of being in a position to control it. It is in exactly this way that the sailor always keeps the wind in his sails. Whether he wants to sail with the wind or whether he wants to sail against the wind, he always uses the wind. He never denies the wind. Well, and it's exactly that same sense that a person has to keep going with his own feeling. Whether he wants to act as the feeling obviously suggests or act in a different way, he has to keep the feeling with him, because that's his own essential self. But when he attempts simply to sail against the wind, he's lost himself. He's become just a kind of empty mask, which hasn't got any real life behind it. And all its protestations of love and goodwill are hollow. So you see, it is in the most basic, simple situation. A mother has a child. She got it by accident, you know? And she thinks, oh, heavens, now I'm all tied up, full of responsibility and so on. I can't stand it. So I really didn't want to have it, and no, I mustn't think that thought. All good mothers naturally love their babies. And so when she gets the baby, she says, darling, I love you, but her milk is sour. And the baby gets the other message. And the baby's mixed up. So, to sum up, what the mystic primarily feels is the divinity, the glory of whatever is. And when we apply that to the moral sphere, what is what one feels genuinely. And this must always be admitted, always allowed. It doesn't mean to say, let me emphasize this, it doesn't mean that we always are therefore compelled to act upon the basis of what we feel. That is to say, to kill the person we hate. Hatred does not necessarily lead to violence. It is unacknowledged hatred that leads to violence. Honest hatred can be expressed in much simpler ways. But the expression, the recognition, the acceptance of what is honestly felt is the moral equivalent of the vision that whatever exists is a manifestation of the divine.
It took me to do science. Oh.
Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer who lost a horse, ran away. And all the neighbors came round that evening and said, that's too bad. And he said, maybe. The next day, the horse came back and brought 7 wild horses with it. And all the neighbors came around and said, "Why, that's great, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." The next day, his son was attempting to tame one of these horses and was riding it and was thrown and broke his leg. And all the neighbors came round in the evening and said, "Well, that's too bad, isn't it?" The farmer said, "Maybe." And the next day, the conscription officers came around looking for people for the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. And all the neighbors came round that evening and said, "Isn't that wonderful?" And he said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity. And it is really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad. Because you never know what will be the consequences of a misfortune. Or you never know what will be the consequences of good fortune.
Captain's log. We've discovered Lightning Link Casino, the best games in the galaxy. Execute the spin. Download now.
So this goes very deep into us. It goes deep, deep, deep into a problem we have about guilt. I wonder often if there's any relationship between guilt and gold. That the love of money is the root of evil. It's a very true saying. Because you see, I was saying yesterday that the difference between having a job and having a vocation is that a job is some unpleasant work you do in order to make money, with the sole purpose of making money. And there are plenty of jobs because there is still a certain amount of dirty work that nobody wants to do, and that therefore they will pay someone to do it. But if you do a job with the sole purpose of making money, you are absurd. Because if money becomes the goal, and it does when you work that way, you begin increasingly to confuse it with happiness or with pleasure. Yes, one can take a whole handful of crisp dollar bills and practically water your mouth over. But this is a kind of a person who is confused, like a Pavlov dog, who salivates on the wrong bell. While it is true, therefore, we should do something about changing the situation, the one way of not doing anything about a situation is feeling guilty about it. Because when people feel guilty about a situation, they most usually, instead of doing something practical to change it, they resort to all sorts of symbolic methods of expiation. They go to confession. They see an analyst. They do all kinds of things, which will be ways of actually not doing anything about the problem, but feeling all right about it instead. And guilt invariably produces that sort of reaction. It is a destructive emotion. And instead, we need to have a different attitude to our mistakes and to our misdeeds. Walt Whitman always admired animals because they do not lie awake at night for their sins. Animals are practical in the real sense, as are children who haven't been taught this extraordinary hang-up of guilt. Because if you have done something wrong and you have made a mistake, and somebody makes you ashamed of it and guilty, you run around licking the sores of your wounded ego because you feel your pride has been hurt. The first thing to understand is that it is not a serious failing in a human being to make mistakes. Everybody has to make mistakes. There is no way out of it. You can't learn anything unless you make mistakes. So likewise, I know a very great anthropologist who was taught music, playing the piano in the same way I was. When I was taught music, the school mom who taught me used to put an India rubber, an eraser it's called in this country, on the top of each hand so that I would have my hands in good posture. And every time I'd play a wrong note, she'd hit my fingers with a pencil. And this great anthropologist had had a similar sort of musical education. And when confronted with a piano in the presence of an absolutely marvelous teacher in San Francisco, she said she was amazed. He was completely incapable of reading notes. He blocked at everything. So another great teacher of the piano I knew said simply, "You must not be afraid of playing wrong notes. Just forget it. Play it wrong. And then eventually go over it again and you'll eventually get it right. But you must not block. Always keep the same rhythm going, even if you have to slow it down. But keep the proportionate rhythm of one note to another. And if it's the wrong note, play the wrong note, as long as you play something in the right rhythm." So, this is a way of taking away people's blockage, people's guilt and shame about making mistakes. So you absolutely, freedom means basically the freedom to make mistakes. The freedom to be a damn fool. And then not to recriminate with yourself when you do finally realize that it was a mistake, but simply don't do it again. Or at least do it less often.
Understand the nature of an onion, you might look for the pit in the center, like any ordinary fruit has.
If you want to travel with your kid, just don't want to share your kid's bedtime.
So when you get right down, there's nothing but a bunch of skins. You say, well, that was kind of disappointing.
This is called Let Go of Attachments by Alan Watts. Published 8 months ago with 39,000
To be
views.
detached from the world, in the sense that Buddhists and Taoists and Hindus will often talk about detachment, does not mean to be non-participative. You can have a sexual life very rich and very full, and yet all the time be detached. By that I don't mean that you just go through it mechanically and have your thoughts elsewhere. I mean a complete participation, but still detached. And the difference of the two attitudes is this. On the one hand, there is a way of being so anxious about physical pleasure, so afraid that you won't make it, that you grab it too hard, that you just have to have that thing. And if you do that, you destroy it completely. And therefore, after every attempt to get it, you feel disappointed. You feel empty, you feel something was lost. And therefore you want it again. You have to keep repeating, because you never really got there. And it's this that is the hang-up. This is what is meant by attachment to this world in an evil sense. But on the other hand, pleasure in its fullness cannot be experienced when one is grasping it. I knew a little girl to whom someone gave a bunny rabbit. She was so delighted with the bunny rabbit and so afraid of losing it that taking it home in the car, she squeezed it to death with love. And lots of parents do that to their children. And lots of spouses do it to each other. They hold on too hard, and so take the life out of this transient, beautifully fragile thing that life is. To have it, to have life, and to have its pleasure, you must at the same time let go of it. And then you can feel perfectly free to have that pleasure in the most gutsy, rollicking, earthy, lip-licking way. One's whole being taken over by a kind of undulative, convulsive ripple, which is like the very pulse of life itself. This can happen only if you let go.
But the onion doesn't have a center. It's all skins. So when you get right down the
What do you mean happiness? What exactly do you mean by happiness? If you translate a particular sensation as happiness, you call it happiness, a particular sensation that is there. You separate yourself and use that knowledge about the happiness that is put in there and translate that and tell yourself that you are happy. You understand? All sensations are very short-lived. They can't last forever. So the moment you separate yourself from a particular sensation and tell yourself that you are happy, the demand to keep that going longer than its duration of life is inevitable. So what all you are doing to stretch that and keep that going on and on has turned that into the opposite unhappiness. You are stuck with unhappiness. Same is the case with the pleasure. You want to be in that state of pleasure all the time. It is just not possible. So you are turning pleasure into pain. You know, we are not ready to accept it. And all those religious jokers tell us, we have some ways, we'll teach you the techniques of meditation, yoga, this, that, and the other, and you will be in a permanent bliss. The demand for permanence in every area of our existence is the cause of human misery. There is no such thing as permanence at all.
Well, I keep saying, de-emphasize anxiety. Reassure people. You meet people who say, I'm really scared. I'm scared about my job. I'm scared about my relay. I'm scared. And says, don't worry. You don't know enough to worry. That's God's truth. Who do you think you are that you should worry, for crying out loud? It's a total waste of time. It presupposes such a knowledge of the situation that it is in fact a form of hubris. No, what you do is just pay your bills and, pack heat if you need to and don't worry. That's all. Yes. Worry is praying to the devil. That's great. Worry is betting against yourself. Wi Po Yang, a great Chinese Taoist who wrote many, many commentaries on the I Ching. He was asked at the end of his life, what was his conclusion of a life of studying the I Ching? And he said, worry is preposterous.
Okay, Rabbi Shalom, everybody. This is the best of Alan Watts. Thank you for being here, Pepe. Thank you, Michelle. We're also live on other Clown House rooms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Hope you're enjoying. This is a 46-part series of Alan Watts. Total length of time is probably about 240 minutes, or about 3 hours or 4 hours. You can also find us in Venture Capital Art.
Our idea of personality of ourselves includes no information whatsoever about the hypothalamus, an organ of the brain, the pineal gland, really of the way we breathe, of how our blood circulates, of how we manage to form a sentence, how we manage to be conscious, how you open and close your hand. The information contained in your image of yourself contains nothing about all that. And therefore, obviously, it's an extremely inadequate image. So when you feel that you are a lonely, put upon, isolated, little stranger confronting all this, see, you have an illusory feeling, because the truth is the reverse. You are the whole works that there is, that always was and always has been, always will be. Only, just as my whole body has a little nerve end here, which is exploring and which contributes to the sense of touch, you are just such a little nerve end for everything that's going on. Just as the eyes serve the whole body and help it to find its way around, so you are, as it were, serving the whole universe. You're a cell, and it's exploring itself. So that you, as a function, you are a function of all that. And therefore, if this is so, it just doesn't fit these facts do not fit the way we feel, because we feel it the other way around. I am a little lonely thing exploring all this universe and trying to make something out of it, get something out of it, do something with it. And I know I'm going to fail because I know I'm going to die one day.
So, Issa, yes, she obviously did hang out with a lot of Groyper types, or a lot of people that love to shit talk Jews on this app, as if, Jews as a group are guilty of something, which is just racist bigotry, xenophobia, and hate speech. So, Issa is a part of that crowd. She goes wherever she wants to go. You're right. She is a clout chasing bitch. If you have your Instagram on this app and you're modding a big room and you're refuting and going through things. I mean, this is the thing: is she is an academic. She is getting her like master's degree or whatever. So I don't know. For the most part, I gotta say she has like a pretty delightful attitude. So whatever somebody's past communications or past rooms, that's one of those things where it's like you can forgive and forget communication, but if there's an action, that's one of those things where you're like, oh, I'll never forget the action. Violence is the ultimate breach of action, so you can judge how you want, but I would say even judging is a waste of your time, Pepe.
So we're all fundamentally depressed. I think up all these fantasies about what's going to happen to us when we're dead, and all that kind of thing. What's going to happen to you when you're dead? What do you mean, you? If you are basically the universe, that question is irrelevant. You never were born and you never will die. Because what there is you. And that should be absolutely obvious. But it is not obvious at all. That should be the simplest thing in the world. That you, the I, is what has always been going on and always will go on forever and ever. But we have been bamboozled by religionists, by politicians, by fathers and mothers, by all sorts of people to tell us, you're not it, and we believed it. You are all as much extraordinary phenomena of nature as, say, trees, clouds, the patterns in running water, the shape of fire, the arrangement of the stars, the form of a galaxy. You are all just like that. There's nothing wrong with you at all. Except that I have to add this little flip. You have in you, you do think there's something wrong with you. See? And there's no question, you do. We all object to ourselves in various ways. And I'm going to add, there's nothing wrong with that either. Because that's part of the flow. That's part of what is going on. That's part of what we do. So I what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to deliver you from a sense of guilt, because I'm going to teach you that you needn't feel guilty because you feel guilty. Of course you feel guilty. It's like someone put a match on you and you feel hot. So they taught you as a child to feel guilty, and you feel guilty. They say, well, if somebody comes along and says, well, you shouldn't, it's not the point. I'm going to say, not that you shouldn't, but that you do, and don't worry about it. And if you want to say further, but I can't help worrying about it, I'm going to say to you, okay, worry about it. This is the principle called in Japanese Judo, meaning the gentle way. Go along with it, go along with it, go along with it. So therefore, this is the beginning of meditation. You don't know what you're supposed to do. What can you? Well, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, you watch. You simply watch what's going on. Like, say, somebody plays music. You listen. And you just follow those sounds. And eventually, you understand the point of the music. The point cannot be explained in words, because music is not words. But after a while, in listening to any music, you will understand the point of it. And that point will be the music itself. So in exactly the same way, you can listen to all experiences, because all experiences whatsoever are vibrations coming at you. Well, you are these vibrations, as a matter of fact. If you really feel out what is happening, what you are aware of as you and as everything else is all the same. It's a vibrations of all kinds, and they're on different bands of the spectrum. Sight vibrations, emotion vibration, touch vibrations, sound vibrations. All these things adding together are woven. All the different senses are woven, and you get a pattern in the weaving. And that pattern is the picture of what you now feel. This thing. Now, instead of saying, what should I do about it? Because who knows what to do about it? To know what to do about this, you would have to know everything. And if you don't, then the only thing that, at least to begin with, you can do is watch. Watch what's going on. Watch not only what's going on the outside, but also what's going on the inside. Treat your own thoughts, your own reactions, your own emotions about what's going on outside, as if those inside reactions were also outside, that you're just watching. And follow, simply observe how they go. Note now, you may say, this is difficult. I am bored by watching what is going on. Let's say you sit quite still, and you are simply observing what is happening. All the sounds outside, all the different shapes and lights in front of your eyes, all the feelings on your skin, inside your skin, belly rumbles, thoughts going on inside your head, chatter, chatter, chatter. I ought to be writing a letter to so-and-so. I should have done this, all this bilge going on. See, you just watch it. But then you say to yourself, but this is boring. Now, watch that too. What is it? What kind of a funny feeling is it that makes you say, but this is boring? Where is it? Where do you feel it? I should be doing something else instead. What's that thing? What part of your body is it in? Is it in here? Is it in here? Is it in the soles of your feet? Where is it? Boring. The feeling of boredom can be very interesting if you try to look it up. So you simply watch. And everything going on without attempting to change it in any way, without judging it, without calling it good or bad, you watch it. That is the essential process of meditation.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? If you're checking your phone, Stop that. Instead, try this technique from the mind science pioneer Jose Silva. You see, when we are awake, our brain is at what is called beta, the waking level. But when we wake up in the morning, our brain is actually at a different altered state of mind called the alpha frequency. At the alpha frequency, you can command your body to heal itself. At the alpha frequency, you can program your subconscious to remove bad beliefs or even take on new habits. Some even suggest that at alpha, your intuition is stronger. This is the state that people often spend years of meditation to train themselves to get into. But it turns out you're in alpha for the first 5 minutes when you wake up. The problem is most people get out of it by checking their phone. So put your phone down, go brush your teeth, go pee if you need to, get back to bed, sit up, and here's the technique Jose suggests you do. Sit up in bed and count backwards from 100 to 1. This will take you about 3 to 4 minutes. And as you count backwards, feel yourself relax. Because you're counting, you keep your mind active so you don't fall asleep. Now, once you're at the alpha level, you're effectively at a really deep level of meditation. This is where you can apply different techniques such as communicating with your body, self-healing, Reiki.
The only thing that could be bad is to take it too seriously. In other words, if you take the fundamental idea that the whole universe, all its forms, all the forms of biology, all the different species, the giraffes, the rhinoceroses, the baboons, the roses, the eucalyptus trees, etc., everything is a form of biological game. It's a dancing thing going on, different styles. And we wouldn't want to say to any of those things, you shouldn't have them. Because they're all the great Maya, the great illusion, the great play. And so the polis, the human community, organized with division of labor, with classes, with all the complications of economics and banking and transportation and so on and so on and so on. All this is a particular kind of play. And each form of it is as legitimate as, say, different kinds of dancing, a waltz, a rumba, a foxtrot, a frog, all are perfectly legitimate forms of dancing. So the universe does this. But the important thing to understand, what the sannyasin, the shramana, the man who goes outside the pale, is saying is, please, people who are in the pale, my existence reminds you that you're only playing. Don't take it too seriously. Because if you take it too seriously, you're going to start destroying each other and fighting and saying this city against that city, this country against that country, so on. Because you're too involved. So every sane society allows a certain number of people to deviate. Monks, some sort of outsiders. It says you don't have to join. You don't have to play the game. A society which is insane and unsure of itself cannot allow that to happen. It says everybody must join. Everybody must work. Everybody must belong. And then freedom disappears. Because as a matter of fact, the anxiety is if you say, well, you don't have to join, there are conditions under which you can go out, then a lot of people get together and say, well, what would happen if everybody quit? I asked, what would happen if everybody decided to take American Airlines Flight 3 to New York tomorrow? Well, they just wouldn't get on. I mean, and they won't anyhow. Because a lot of people aren't interested in that, are not ready to quit. That doesn't mean that they're inferior. The acorn is not inferior to the oak tree. It's a potential oak, but as an acorn, it's just as beautiful and lovely a thing as a full-grown oak is. A baby is as lovely as an adult, sometimes a great deal more lovely. So a person who is in a beginning state of evolution is just as marvelous as a person in a high state of evolution. Just as much a manifestation of the divine
balance. So, when a society allows a certain number of people to withdraw, it should have no anxiety that everybody will want to withdraw. Because some people are absolutely fascinated in competition, in being involved, in playing the game. They should be. It's fine for them. But we are witnessing in the United States today a great motivation for withdrawal. It's simply because we haven't provided for it. We haven't, there's no opportunity for a Protestant to become a monk or a Jew. The Catholics have half-heartedly provided for this sort of thing. And there have to be people who stand outside the game and do not identify themselves with a class, with a name, with an ego, with a persona, with a role. The whole conception of nature is as a self-regulating, self-governing, indeed democratic organism. But it has a totality. It all goes together, and this totality is the Tao. When we speak in Taoism of following the course of nature, following the way, what it means is more like this. Doing things in accordance with the grain. It doesn't mean you don't cut wood, but it means that you cut wood along the lines where wood is most easy to cut. And this, then, is the great fundamental principle, which is called Wu Wei. Not to force anything. I think that's the best translation. It's often called not doing, not acting, not interfering, not to force. Seems to me to hit the nail on the head. Like, don't ever force the lock, or you bend the key or break the lock. You jiggle until it revolves. So Wu Wei is always to act in accordance with the pattern of things as they exist. Don't impose on any situation a kind of interference that is not really in accordance with the situation. It would be better to do nothing than to interfere without knowing the system of relations that exists. It's terribly important then to have this feeling of the interdependence of every form of life upon every other form of life. You have to see that life, the so-called conflict of various species with each other, is not actually a competition. It's a very strange system of interrelationship, of things feeding on each other and cultivating each other at the same time. The idea of the friendly enemy, the necessary adversary, who is part of you. You have conflicts going on in your own body. All kinds of microorganisms are eating each other up. And if that wasn't happening, you wouldn't be healthy. So all those interrelationships, whether they appear to be friendly relationships as between bees and flowers, or conflicting relationships as between birds and worms, they are actually forms of cooperation. And that is mutual arising. You have to understand this as the basis. Apply this, not forcing anything, and you get spontaneity. A life which is so of itself, which is natural, which is not forced, which is not unduly self-conscious.
I happen to be a lover of archery. But I don't like archery for killing things. I like it as a sport. But what I like most of all is to set an arrow free, like it were a bird. You know, when it gets far up in the sky, whee, you watch it. And it suddenly turns and drops. What is it that fascinates us about that? Because it's not useful. It doesn't really achieve anything that we would call purposive work. It simply is what we call play. But in our culture, we make an extremely rigid division between work and play. You're supposed to work in order to earn enough money to give you sufficient leisure time for something entirely different called having fun or play. Imagine, too, if you were a bus driver. Bus driver is ordinarily considered an absolutely harassed person. He's got to watch out for all the laws, all the competing traffic, the cops, the people coming on board giving their fares, and he has to give them change. And if he has it in his head that this is work, it will be hell. But let's suppose he has a different thing in his head. Supposing he has the idea that moving this enormous conveyance through complicated traffic is a very, very subtle game. And he has the same feeling about it that you might have if you were playing the guitar or dancing. And so he goes through that traffic, avoiding this and avoiding that, and taking a fare like this, and he makes the music of the whole thing. Be tired out at the end of the day. He's going to be full of energy when he gets through his job. The art of washing dishes is that you only have to wash one at a time. If you're doing it day after day, you have in your mind's eye an enormous stack of filthy dishes which you have washed up in years past, and an enormous stack of filthy dishes which you will wash up in years future. But if you bring in your mind to the state of reality, which is, as I've pointed out to you, only now. This is where we are. There is only now. You only have to wash one dish. It's the only dish you'll ever have to wash, this one. You ignore all the rest, because in reality, there is no past and there is no future. There is just now. So you wash this one. And instead of thinking, have I got it really clean, as my mother taught me with an angry voice, that I had to get every little scrap off it, and she got angry at you. Instead, you turn the cleaning movement into a dance. Like this. And you dig that. And you swing that plate around, and you let the rinsing water go over it, and you put it out in the rack. Crazy. See? Take the next one. You get this rhythm going. See? And you're not under compulsion all the time. You know, when I was a little boy and went to school in England, I had to learn the piano. They called it playing the piano. But actually, they said you must play. We had in England compulsory games. They used to post notices on the bulletin board in the school where I went to, which said, this afternoon, everyone will go for a run. And if you didn't go for a run, and it was found out that you hadn't, you were flogged. So everybody hated going for a run because they were under compulsion to play. Everybody must play. It's like the whole game of life we're all involved in. It's only a game, but everybody has got to belong. So we went running. I remember one day I was out on a run, and I was trying to enjoy myself because I was running on the balls of my feet, dancing along. And a fellow came up behind me who was running on his heels. He was jogging. And he was going clump, 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 clump. And I said, what's the matter with you? You're running on your heels. And you're jarring your whole body all the way through. Okay, but he stuck to it, and he became the champion long-distance runner of the school. But he didn't enjoy it. It was work. And all he enjoyed was the suffering that he endured that made him feel that he had really contributed to the human race because he suffered so much. He identified his existence and his worth with his suffering. Now, really great runners dance when they run. They don't necessarily follow a straight course. They may weave. And in the same way, if you happen to witness in the year 1970 the World Cup Championship in soccer, you would have seen that the winning team from Brazil played soccer in a most extraordinary way. They played it like basketball. They played it dancing. The way we learned soccer in school when I was a boy was very, very formal and orderly, and we didn't really enjoy it. But these fellows were bouncing balls off their shoulders, off every muscle, and they had astonishing teamwork. But at the same time, were dancing the game, and the sports writer in the London Times said that they danced their way to victory. So the point is, therefore, that you can do everything you have to do in this spirit. Don't make a distinction between work and play. Regard everything that you're doing as play, and don't imagine for 1 minute that you've got to be serious about it. Let's take, for example, the rest of the world, other than ourselves. Think for a moment, what are vegetables doing? Let's, for example, consider this. And what's it all about? I mean, it serves us, human beings, by being decorative. But what is it from its own point of view? See, because here is this stalk, and all these leaves come out, ka-ching, 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 all the way stalk, then whoops, it goes into this. And then it goes into flowers in the end, you see, and they go kitty, 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 all around. And I look at the thing, and it's like a symphony. It's just like Bach doing a fugue, with all the different movements going. And that's what it's about. When you say it's using up air, it's using up energy, it's really not doing anything except being ornamental. And yet here's the whole vegetable world. Not only cactus plants like this, but all trees, roses, tulips, and edible vegetables, cabbages, celery, lettuce. They're all doing this dance. And what is it all about? Why do they do it? Well, we say, one must live. It's necessary to survive. You know, you really must go on. It's your duty. It's your duty to your children. But you see, the thing I feel is if you bring up your children that way and tell them that they ought to be grateful to you because you're doing your duty towards them, they will learn to bring up their children in the same way, and everybody will be depressed. There really is no necessity to go on living. We think, it's part of our Western philosophy, that we think we have a drive to survive, that we must go on living. Because some big daddy said to us, you gotta go on living, see? And you better make it or else. Well, I've already explained to you on this show that the fear of death is completely absurd. Because if you're dead, you've got nothing to worry about. So you'll be all right. So in the same way, you must not, I don't want to use that word, must not. Because I'm not trying to talk to you as an authority. I'm trying to talk to you as somebody who's opening your mind up, a helper, not a father figure. This thing here, this plant, I'm quite sure it doesn't say to itself, you ought to go on living. You've got an instinct to survive, which is something other than yourself and which you have to obey. See, I don't think of my own instincts as drives, which is the proper psychological term for them nowadays. I think of my instincts as myself. I don't say, excuse me, but I have an unfortunate desire to reproduce myself, and therefore I'm sexy, and would you please accommodate me? I don't say, excuse me, but I have to eat, and really it's absolutely necessary that I eat. I say, on the contrary, hooray! I am this desire to make love, and I am this desire to eat. It's not something else that pushes me around, it's me. Well, all right, but it doesn't have to go on. I don't feel so compelled that if it were to stop, well, if it were to stop, if I were to be killed, that would be another scene. That would be a different form of the dance. If I'm in pain, people say, don't scream, don't cry, because screaming or crying is a perfectly natural reaction to pain. When a baby is first born, they cut the umbilical cord and somebody smacks it on the bottom, and the baby, yeah! See? That's the first thing in the world. There is in Zen Buddhism a koan, which says that when the Buddha was born, he suddenly stood up and announced, above the heavens and below the heavens, I alone am the world honored one. Well, everybody would say that was an extremely proud thing to say. So they give this to students of Buddhism as a problem. How could it be that the Buddha, as a little baby, was so proud as to make this pompous statement when he was born? And if you understand the problem correctly, you answer, see? Because that is the perfectly natural response to the painful event of being born into this world. But thereafter, we always say, baby, don't you cry. Shut up. We don't like to hear babies cry. Shut up. And therefore, we stamp out in human beings their natural release from the problem of pain. If you're in pain, cry. And if you can't do that, then pain is your problem. But if you can cry, and if you can let go in that way, pain is no problem. And if you get the shudders at death, the idea of death, the idea of not being here anymore, just get those shudders and dig them. Because the shuddering, isn't it curious? We sometimes say, you remember that song that said, I am not shivering cause I'm cold. I am not shivering cause I'm cold. I am not shivering cause I'm cold. I am just shivering with delight. You know, we get the shivers of delight. So all these emotions that we have, the emotions of uptightness, dread, shivers, horrors, can be interpreted in other ways. But we interpret them in a negative way so long as we are under the sense that you absolutely must go on living. Now you see, living, like this plant, is something spontaneous. In Chinese, the word for nature is zhiran, which means that which happens of itself, not under any control of an outside boss. And they feel that all the world is happening so of itself. It's spontaneous. And so you stop this spontaneous flowering of nature cold if you tell it you must do it. It's like saying to someone, you must love me. Well, it's ridiculous. If I were to ask my wife, darling, do you really love me? And she says, I'm trying my best to do so. That's not the answer I want. I want her to say, I can't help loving you. I love you so much, I could eat you. And that's what the plant feels in growing. It doesn't feel that it must grow. It's not under orders. It's not a military chain of command. It does this spontaneously. So that when you try to command the spontaneous process, you stop it. It's like saying to someone, now, be unself-conscious. You know, there's a belief in India that if you think of a monkey while you're taking medicine, the medicine won't work. So therefore, when you take your vitamins or next pills, try not to think of a monkey. See? And that will completely tie up the spontaneous process, and it won't work. So all the things that we say to our children, like, well, you must have a bowel movement every day after breakfast. Try, darling, to go to sleep. Stop pouting. Take that look off your face. Oh, you're blushing. And make you feel guilty about blushing. See? All those things are attempts to say this one thing. Darling, little child, you are required to do what will be acceptable only if you do it voluntarily. And everybody on this account is completely mixed up.
I'd say I've known Peter Daszak
because we are trying
for
to
almost
force
20 years, and in my personal opinion,
genuine
he's
behavior.
an honorable.
We all admire art.
So have you had conversations with Dr. Daszak about this recent suspension?
Not a conversation. I knew about it. He sent me an email or something. It was a
So they occurred over email. You as communicated via email about his disbarment.
I should say Gmail, not NIH email. He doesn't send. You know, he was sending NIH stuff to my NIH email for a long time, and I kept telling him don't do that. And that's how this Gmail thing started. He sent me in 2020. He sent a message to me on my government email, and I forget what it was. Maybe I never knew what it was, but eventually that email was FOIA'd.
Okay.
So wait a second. Can I finish? Eventually, this email was FOIA'd, and Peter contacted me and said, you know, some friend you are. I sent you an email with all my personals for the newspaper. And that really struck me. That was a turning point for me because he was under death threats. And
Right. And I get it. Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one last yes or no question. Have you had any conversations with Dr. Daszak this suspension, yes or no?
The suspension?
The suspension of the disbarment, the suspension.
Not conversation, but he has sent me an email.
But that's email's a conversation. Your conversation via email then. You've had a via email with Dr. Daszak.
Well, if you call it a conversation, yes. It's you know, we didn't talk about it, but he just sent it to me and I read it or not. That's all.
Thank you. Yield.
Now recognize Ms. Ross from North Carolina for 5 minutes of question.
People and you're working with your colleagues. Since the start of the pandemic, we have seen a decline in the public's confidence in science and public health. One study conducted by the Pew Research Center found that between April 2020 and October 2023, the number of Americans who reported that they had a great deal of trust in scientists fell by 16%, from 39% to 23%. And while proliferation of misinformation about COVID-19 has certainly fueled this decline, when the American public sees that one of the federal government's own scientists was potentially trying to hide their work-related conversations from the public by using a personal email, that will only lead to further distrust in our nation's scientific community. And this decline in the confidence in the scientific enterprise has rippled and had health effects that we're seeing even now. For example, we've seen the effect of the distrust in science, specifically within our vaccine records. A recent survey from the Annenberg Public Policy Center found that the proportion of respondents who did not believe in vaccines that are approved in the United States, it doubled from nearly doubled from 9% to 16% between April 2021 and the fall of 2023. And with new variants of the coronavirus, fewer and fewer people are getting their booster shots. As we hold today's hearings, the United States is at the precipice of losing our measles elimination status due to repeated outbreaks of the disease that have popped up across the country, from Florida to Ohio to Missouri to California. This is especially concerning as 250,000 kindergartners nationwide haven't received their updated measles immunization, leaving them unprotected from this deadly disease. That is not your fault, but what I am saying is, when people don't trust scientists, they don't trust the science. So you've answered this question in another way.
John, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you, Dr. Castillo. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. John, let's start with the formal question. First, your full name and date of birth.
It's John Kitover, 11682.
John, thank you for filling out that survey that you returned regarding anxiety. And 19 is a fairly moderately severe level of anxiety. I also sent you the second one. I don't know if you saw that. It's to assess more your depression issues, which seems to be your stated concern at least. Again, about 30 seconds is all it takes. Can you see if on that on your app you can see that in other form and complete that?
When I try to exit this, it'll end the call. Do you want me to try to rejoin the call?
Yeah, why don't you do that? That's fine.
Okay, I'll be right back.
If you can find the survey, do the survey and then send it, then we can reopen everything.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right, John, do you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Great. Thank you for filling out the and yes, they quantify both for anxiety and for depression. It's pretty severe. So, tell me the story. What's been going on? Is it something that's chronic? Is it something relatively new? What's happening?
It's pretty chronic. I've had it since I was in the service. I was in the Army from 2002 to 2006. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and PTSD from a service-connected event. and the work at my the stress at my work has gotten to the point where I just basically have to keep requesting sick leave because the conflict with the management has gotten to the point where I have had some issues, believe it or not, with sexual harassment at work, and that caused so much conflict with internal management that that like I have anger management issues, he has anger management issues, and so I having had gone through this, I'm just trying to not communicate, I suppose. I know that may sound unhealthy, but I mean I need to use my sick leave, but it's gotten to the point where I am having suicidal ideation, and I have been thinking, there's times when I take the train and I have to go over the bridge and I'm having suicidal thoughts. So I'm trying to, keep my emotions and everything in check and use my sick leave to regather, I suppose, my mental health, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Regarding the suicidal ideation, do you have any active plans that you thought about?
No, other than just walking over the bridge and seeing the highway and having those, I guess, those thoughts.
John, have you ever taken medications?
Yeah,
For any?
yeah, I've taken psychiatric medication for bipolar.
Okay, is it bipolar 1 or bipolar 2? Do you know?
It's, I think it's bipolar 2.
All right. Usually that is the bellywork of a psychiatrist. Have you seen a psychiatrist anytime recently?
I saw some type of licensed therapist with the VA, some contracted therapist that they wanted me to meet with. I met with her a couple weeks ago, but no, I haven't been meeting with a psychiatrist at the VA. I usually go in. I usually go in if I'm having a crisis.
Okay, understood. So the VA's been a good resource for you?
Yeah, it's been helpful. But I know medications have changed for bipolar, so I saw the lithium that I was taking. It's too much on my body. It's the rashes, and then the regular blood testing. I just can't keep doing that, and that in itself is enough to drive me to throw myself off of a bridge with the lithium. So
Okay, understood.
yeah.
So bipolar medication is outside of my training expertise. So that would require a psychiatric referral to help understand your situation and then try to recommend medications other than lithium that could be helpful for your situation. So I can either make a referral to you for you to a psychiatrist within our network, or I'm thinking perhaps more helpful is you contact that VA therapist who you saw a few weeks ago and ask what's the research, the psychiatric resource there in the VA that she can help you plug into.
She's not a VA employee. She's just a contractor, and she was doing I can go to the VA hospital, but it's really just you go to the emergency room, and then they refer you to the psychiatrist, and then whoever's on staff will meet with you.
Well, for that reason, again, if that's the most helpful for your financial reasons to get help from the VA,
because I have private health insurance with Blue Cross, I would prefer to go through a psychiatrist and stop doing VA.
All right, then that's where I can deal.
Okay.
With that, but again, it would be psychiatric referral is what I'm thinking is going to be the most expeditious to get you the help you need regarding medication choices. That would be, let's see, what's that cause? No, you're not there. works. Oh, come on. Psychiatry. Now, John, what we have, where are you located here?
I'm in Jefferson Park in the northwest side.
Northwest side. West Loop, West Town. How close is that to Lakeview?
Lakeview is east of me, about 30 minutes. I'm closer to like where the 90 and the 94 split, where you go to O'Hare.
Oh, is that your Elmhurst, Barrington? I've got some options here for different West Loop, West Town, Algonquin, Aurora, Lakeview.
Yeah, West Loop would be fine. I can take the train down there.
Okay. Geod Health is what we've been finding is a very helpful mental health resource for us. And they offer the whole gamut of therapists, much like you had a few weeks ago at the VA, as well as psychiatry. Let's see, yes. And that is really what you would need. Psychiatry probably first to get a better handle on what kind of medications, but then they probably would also want you to be seeing a therapist in combination, but that could be their call. Okay. But let me put in a referral order for you to the Geod Health Group in West Loop. First contact may in fact be by Zoom, just like this, to help determine who's the best psychiatrist to see you. Go through your whole history, maybe more detail about the actual PTSD, bipolar stuff that was diagnosed in the Army, when it was, and what were the precipitating factors for that, before they can help then decide who would be the best connection for you. And then beyond that, they may want to have an office visit afterward to talk about medication options, because they probably want to do some lab work and stuff like that. But if that sounds good to you, let me process this and put it in motion, the referral to the Geod Health Group West Loop. And then I'm going to put an urgent referral on that, so that I'm hoping they're going to reach out to you in the next day or so. If you don't hear from anyone by Friday morning, you're going to see the referral on your app. You take a look at the address. It's 1202 West Monroe. I don't unfortunately have a phone number for you, but you can look that up and then give them a call. They should have the referral on file, and then you can work with them to set up the first available appointment. They want to do that either remotely or in office. Okay? John, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, I apologize. Just you're in a severity level for either depression or anxiety, but most especially because of the bipolar diagnosis that you have had, that often medications for either depression or anxiety exacerbate or make worse the bipolar issues with those medications instead of specific medications for bipolar. All right?
Okay.
Good. So let me put this in motion. You will see it on your app in just a few minutes. Then, as I said, it's going to kick around in cyberspace, so we may not get to them this afternoon, but by tomorrow, again, no one reached out to you. If you're anxious, just give a call and see what you can do.
Okay.
All right. Good, John. I hope this works for you. And I know this, I see Dr. Wally's been your other provider that you've been seeing, Dr. Chaco before that, but you can reach out to any one of us for follow-up purposes if this doesn't seem to be working for you.
Okay, will do. Is it possible to get a doctor's note that I can send to my manager so she can send it to the? Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Stating, yes, it is possible. Tell me specifically what it is you would like the letter to say.
Just that I guess I'm under your care or been referred to this practitioner, and I'll return to work next Monday.
So that's what I was really hoping for, is the date. You think next Monday would be fine, so you want time off. Have you been going to work this week at all?
No, I haven't. No.
So give you Monday through Friday this week time off, return Monday of next week.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, just let me put that together, and then I'll message it to you. You can take a quick read of it. If it doesn't, if you said no, I want something changed, just message back to me, and I'll make that modification for you.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. All right, John.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Castillo.
Welcome. You take care. I'm gonna try to get this all arranged in the next few minutes for you.
Okay, appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Okay, bye.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to...
Oh, when are you available this week? Beverly Hills, it's where I want to go. Beverly Hills, Beverly Hills, it's where I want to go.
Curious that they were referring to them in a double, so as people who are shaving the coins and creating their own coins. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, you are entering a room that is contained and modded by Jewish people.
I avoided it all morning long.
And then,
all morning long I avoided it.
Hold on.
You were still there.
I have you as a person that knows to socialize, right? To knows how to navigate socially. Yeah. You don't come to these rooms and throws a pinch saying, "Oh, you circumcised the."
Did he kick me? Oh fuck, my battery.
when I didn't even say anything until you guys said you were
No,
supposed
because
to.
we've been there for like how much, Pepe? I don't even count right now, but it has been on for like
6
10
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
10 hours or so. We've been first with Ish and then in the other room. But what I was gonna say is that when someone takes a position, you know, against Jewish people, for example, and not necessarily against Jewish people, but pro, let's say the Muslims thing that's happening right now, just because you dislike the other side and your position in favor of the Muslims doesn't make any sense. I don't know, like I don't know how you justify that. I mean, you have much more in common with a Jewish person than you have with a Muslim. So I don't understand at some point how does your brain justify standing on someone's side just because you don't like the other. I don't know.
You've never seen that meme of the Christian and the Muslim?
You've never seen what?
Their backs? You've never seen that meme of the Christian and the Muslims facing the hordes and they say together, together? You've never seen that meme? You've seen it.
No, I
I'm gonna send
haven't.
it to you.
No.
Hold on. It's a Templar and a Muslim. Hold on. I'll send it to you.
But what's supposed to be funny about it?
Well,
I mean,
you have to see
can
it.
you imagine another Reconquista, you know, where you have a lot of Muslims coming into the West world? Well, you don't need to imagine, you can just see it, you know. Cannot you see the clash and the problem that could be? I mean, like how your own culture would be completely wiped. And listen, I don't have anything against the Muslims themselves, you know, like individually, like I have friends and you know, I love a lot of them. But for example, personally, I would never, ever, for example, date a Muslim because I understand the clash of culture and the clash of everything.
Would you date a Jew, you said?
I have, actually.
Of course you have.
What's the difference of the, like, I mean, your clash of culture if you date a Jew, just like if you date a Muslim? You said you're a Christian.
No, but it's not the same. Well, listen, I am not a religious person. Hold on. I'm answering. So I am not a religious person. He was not a religious Jew. And if you take the, let's say, religion out of it, which I don't think is that contradictory, other than I believe, of course, Jesus was the Messiah, they don't. But other than that, the costumes are not necessarily super clashing, you know? Whereas with a Muslim is completely the opposite. I don't know.
Well, I think
I see more conflicting points with someone that is a Muslim, culturally, religiously, how they were raised, food, everything, than with a Jew.
You said check Telegram. I sent you the meme.
Okay, let me check.
Well,
Jews and Christians, I think that they're more Western, you know?
No, yeah. Now, culturally, societally, right, with Western values and principles, they're gonna collide. But when it comes to religion, first of all, I believe that if you're a religious Muslim, date a religious Muslim, religious Jew, all that.
Yeah, they would not marry me.
But when it comes to alignment based on religion, Muslims and Christians align much closer than Jews and Christians.
How so?
Muslims think that Mary was inseminated by God. That's good enough for me.
So this is a conflict. This is a conflict not just of religion but of culture. And if you can't see the difference between religious intelligence or enlightenment and cultural differences, you really don't understand communication in the sense that you guys are all going in a circular flow of your communication, getting to no central point, which is the self. You guys yourselves don't even realize that you guys are hypnotizing yourselves over and over and over again, getting nowhere personally.
Hey, Republican, I was thinking about you. Have you seen this whole thing that the guy on Joe Rogan talked about the periodic table of elements being broken down into octaves?
No, but I believe it though.
I was thinking about you this whole time. So he said that that the periodic table of elements can be broken down in a different way rather than be like a square. It can be done in a circle and broken down into
Sure.
octaves. When he says that, like, man, I can't even remember all the shit that he talks about, but I thought I was right up your alley.
Yeah, I've seen that matrix already. All the corresponding notes like A minor, B major, all these things correspond to geometry, to minerals, to colors, to fragrances, and to the elements. So, Mercury being the most unique element that there is because it has the principles of liquid and metal, and it's silver. So it's like quicksilver, or what you could call the nectar of the gods, and actually the king of Persia used to bathe in a mercury pool. How stupid is that? Obviously, he didn't last long, but back then they thought it was something mystical and magical. But the whole point is it's a metaphor really for communication technology or information technology.
Explain.
Meaning that you all have the emotional intelligence of a guppy fish, especially you, Keegan.
Oh.
No, but I thought that you should listen to this podcast. It's the guy from Iron Man. I forget what his name is. Terrence Howard. Yeah, who said that? Thank you.
Cute.
Because the point is, there is no God but man. So if you still keep playing these Jew hate games, it's just the unincorporated shadow. You have not read C.G. Jung. You haven't read Alan Watts. You don't know Jewish mysticism. You don't understand Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov. You all have evil inclinations, and you're a bunch of do-gooders. And so am I. I'm not tossing you under the bus. We're all on the same bus, but I'm just saying that I get the feeling that you got, because I've been recording and reading so much, and basically you guys don't see the fact that you're just circles and you just keep having the same patterns. And what I'm trying to suggest to you is you break free from your pattern and stop with your social conditioning or your clown conditioning. You're all highly conditioned and it's just obvious. And you choose to keep playing that game, that LARP, that pattern, but that's your choice. But I'm trying to encourage you to free yourself from your preconceived notions, from your judgments, from your opinions, from your questions. Just stop thinking and end your problems. Know where you came from and end all your problems. You're a bunch of bullshit artists, and so am I. But let's be honest, there is a universalism, but Islam, I don't know. I'd rather be on this side of the fence, so I have to agree with Isa, where, a Muslim man, a very strong Muslim man, believes in his politics, his law, and his religion is one. And there's nothing outside those boundaries. And that's when you go to war. So they're very militant. And if you don't think that they're alpha males, well, you don't know strong Muslim terrorists. And they will fight to the death. And they will be killed.
Yeah. You're supporting something that will make you cry later.
Who's your daddy?
What is it?
Yeah, Diego.
I mean, you guys are creating your own graves, I think. I don't know. Keegan, so what is your reasoning for, I don't know, like being so against the Jews, for example?
Yeah, it's not that we're really against the Jews. Again, I've said this multiple times, which is that.
Yeah, you do have friends that are Jews and whatever, but why would you prefer?
Well, I don't prefer Muslims at all. I don't prefer anyone who doesn't come from a Christian belief system. But when I say this, I say that number one is that Jews, not any Jews, but Jews in power, for some reason want to undermine what my country was built on, which is Christian principles. And we see this with what the ADL pushes, with what the international Jewish.
My darling, I have to interrupt Keegan. Keegan, I have to interrupt you.
You can go after.
And so we look at these different lobbyists who continue to push bills of abortion, bills of LGBTQ rights, things that are completely against my principles, and I feel like they're undermining my country. And then when I look at the lobbyist groups who push these bills, I say, man, why is a lot of them Jewish? And I'm not saying anything rather than I'm just pointing out a pattern. So I say
Don't you see all these people from Palestine are all associating with all the groups that you're mentioning?
Well, yeah, of course you're gonna have the dumb right, Rick. You got a lot of background noise, but thank you, sir. And Lisa, I do agree with you that it's really interesting that you have a lot of LGBTQ and very left progressive leaning being pro-Palestine. I think that
they're not rejecting the sport just because they're LGBTQ.
Exactly. I agree.
See the tactical stuff there?
I agree, but again, this is not my grievance. My grievance again is what is America becoming, and how did it get there? And I say, man, it's weird that feminism was pushed at such a radical and quick way. Okay, who was behind that? You see that and just look at the main women who were feminists in the 70s. It's a lot of Jewish women. You go, okay, that's kind of weird. Then you look at the sex industry, and you realize that almost every major corporation in the porn industry is already owned by someone who is of Jewish descent. It is a very weird thing that we can't just mention patterns. If I saw a bunch of Christians ruining my country with just, again, delinquency and with degeneracy, I would want to point it out.
See, Keegan, well then why don't you talk about the Catholic Church, for God's sakes? That's the point. Well, that's the point. It sounds like it's Jubies. It's not Jubies, buddy. It's Catholic, brother. You should be looking at the Catholic Church and talking about them twice as much as you do these fucking Jews.
Jefferson, I look at the Catholics as much as I look at the Jews. But you're not in the room about Catholics. You're in the room about Jews right now. We're only talking about the Jews.
Oh, it's not a room about Jews. We're just chilling. This is the after party.
Listen, well, I guess the point is, if you're going to talk shit about Catholics, it's still the unincorporated shadow. Your true self, basically, the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. You are the truth. That's my point.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Sometimes you mix it up.
No, I mean that everybody is the truth, but the real truth is like the sum composite, and that's the cornucopia or the Thanksgiving. I mean, when you have a Thanksgiving meal, it's not just the stuffing. It's like it's all of it in your mouth at once, which makes it unique.
I guess I just wanted to say, I don't understand how my good, clean white friend Keegan is being attacked and labeled as like some Jew hater. Like, that's just weird.
Yeah, I love Jews, and I love black people, I love white people. I hate the people who destroy my country. And Rick knows one of them. Rick knows.
Dude, you can have your opinion. Like, it's okay. Like, it is what it is, but as someone who is Jewish, I don't feel like, you know, you feel some sort of way.
Here in the up either. No.
See, I kind of have a unique position.
I bet Rick is upset. If I showed him all the people who own porn websites, and all the people who are in the Federal Reserve, and all the people who are in the second wave feminism in the 70s, and you realize that a lot of them were Jewish, I bet he's upset. He's like, gosh, they're painting a bad picture of Jewish.
Yeah, but Keegan, don't you?
I think that you're just kind of trolling, and I've asked you before, like, if you have an education and you have a job and you have like a direction in life, and you've said yes. And what did I say? Okay, so the Jews didn't stop you. So you're good.
You did not stop me.
Exactly.
You did not stop me.
So we're good.
See, Keegan, you do obsess over the Jews because you haven't cited any Catholic statistics, Protestant statistics, or Muslim statistics.
People listen. When you go off on the Jews, people listen to you.
I get it. He's an overweight. I mean, he's an overweight fatty on a social audio chit chat app because he's white. He gets special white treatment, and everything he says, nothing's intellectual. It's always just Jew this, Jew that. It's very low IQ sauce. Go bake your mastacholi and read a book, fat boy. How do you feel now, fatty?
I'll tell you this: Catholics have the most up until I think like 2014, they had the most powerful telescope in the world. It was worth well over like $3 billion, and it was like the lunar, it had a big name for it, and the acronym was Lucifer. When I see that, I go, oh my gosh, that's satanic in the Catholic Church. right? I'll call it out. I'll call out the pedophilia in the Catholic Church.
Keegan, I want to talk about self-actualization, enlightenment. Where do you come from, Keegan? And I don't mean literally as in you're from Podunk, Simpsonville, Springfield. Like, fat ass, where do you think your immortal soul comes from, you fat piece of shit, you Jew-hating cocksucker?
From the Abrahamic.
I'm just trying, and Keegan, I'm picking on you in the sense that, like, if you haven't towed the line and you haven't been on the ledge in terms of military service or being a very aggressive, person, I'm just telling you that technically everyone is an immortal, eternal being, and we're all God in drag. So anyone who's got Jew hate or Muslim hate, you don't get enlightenment. You are still the eternal schmuck. You're just a fucking kid, dude. You're a fool if you haven't figured out the concept of the immortal soul yet. And all this LARPing that we're all doing on this planet is a highly complex bird game of fucking chitter chatter.
Okay, and what if you have like 30 phones? Wait. Move me a bit. What if you have like, Jefferson, what if you have like 30 phones and you record people and stream people and just like do weird shit that no one could even grasp, like why? Like it's not you could judge anything. You're just making absurd judgments about people and whether they're gonna go to hell or heaven or whatever you're saying. It's like you're making it seem like you're Jewish. I don't even believe in heaven. So you're talking all outsides of your age, Jefferson.
Well, what's interesting is that we can recognize patterns when we see patterns, and we do this with all types of people groups. We do this with white Americans, with black Americans, and I say it when you are a 1%, when you're in the 1%, the 5% in financial gains in this country, and then you undermine this country, I have a problem with you. I don't think it's Jews. I think it just happens to be a good amount of Jewish people in the 1% because they're very intelligent. They have a high IQ. They care about their finances, so they end up in the 1%. And then what do? They say, okay, I care about Israel more than I care about the United States. And I'm going to push Israel, funds, and I'm going to push Israel ideas, whether or not Americans agree with it.
Keegan, you should go to Tel Aviv someday and see where all your money goes. You might like it.
Maybe I'll go to Jerusalem. That'd be good to see.
But Keegan, hold on 1 second. You in the other room also today you said that you chose a career path that would be of service to people, and that you're very happy with that, and that blah blah blah. Now I am asking you, if you're so concerned of people you don't like taking positions of influence where they are able to determine the path that your country is taken, why don't you put yourself there? Why don't you build yourself up to the point where you can grab those seats and actually steer the country in a more, let's call it, quote unquote, Christian way, and where the interest of the country stay in the country, Because what I see is that all the people complaining, about what's happening in the government, on the left, on the right, on the Republicans, there is a lot of very capable people, but none of them are running for government. All of them, however, are complaining about what's happening in the country. And so I don't understand that. Why don't you guys make yourselves one of those that can change things?
Yeah, I'm very self-aware with my position. I am not made to be a leader. I know that, Isa. I've said this multiple times on the staff that I'm not made to be a leader. I am a follower, and that's my calling. My self-reflection has taught me that.
Keegan, follow me. I'm a leader.
Keegan, the whole thing you have to realize is there is not a speck of dust out of place in the whole universe. That the way that things are today is the way that they're meant to be. And so if you run through history hypnosis lessons or just cite Jew statistics and organizations and not speak about other statistics, I mean, you're trolling, bro, and you may think you're funny, and it may give you some kind of like following from a lot of people that have hate in their heart for Jews or white people, but if you want to be happy in life, you do have to go within. You really do. There is no other way to really have success, and I'm talking about the material world as well as the psychological, emotional world. You're not going to be happy in life replacing people's mufflers and then you can't come to Clown House and get your drug feedback loop, you're going to have to work in communication. I encourage you to service humanity through communication and not through changing mufflers. I'm finished speaking.
How do you get there?
So Keegan, I'm a leader. Are you willing to follow me?
And how did you get the job? What do you mean? Who said that? How did you get the job? I didn't see. Okay, whatever.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I don't know. I just think.
Damn, Keegan, you're a follower? You're a self-admitted anti-leader? What?
I'm a Christian. I'm a sheep. I'm a sheep.
That's crazy to say that out loud. Like, maybe it's true. I don't know. But you have to, and I don't really want to, like, preach, but you do have to be careful because there's people like that guy, like, Joseph on this app who thinks he's, like, the fucking, like, Jesus Christ. Like, if he hears someone, like, saying something like you just said, like, I'm not a leader, I'm a follower, I'm looking to follow, he's gonna, like, pounce and pray. So you can, like, he's a sheep.
Keegan's probably being facetious.
I follow Christ. Right? I don't follow.
Yeah, but this guy Joseph says he's like the new Christ.
But Keegan, Christ.
You can also be a leader of your country and still following Christ.
Keegan, Christ doesn't just want followers.
You wouldn't have to complain about the Jewish power because you would be in power.
Keegan, you know, Christ was a very wise. You would agree that Christ was the wisest person to have ever lived, right, Keegan? If he's the Son of God or is God?
Of course.
Okay, so look at what he did in the material world during his life and how he trolled the religious establishment. He trolled the political establishment. He walked a fine line, a silver line. You see what I'm saying? That's what Christ wants you to do. Christ doesn't want you to be a subversive Jew-hate statistic citer. Christ wants you to model his life. So if you think your fat ass on this app talking Jew hate is modeling the life of Christ, you yet to understand the true meaning of Christ. It is political. It is religious. It is spiritual.
But this isn't Jew hate. What if I said that was hateful? I love my Jewish brothers. I do not love the people who support my country.
It's not you hate the Jews, but you are, let's say, frustrated or resentful because the Jews that are in power, they are leading the country turning it or shifting it or driving it into interest of Israel, and that's what you don't agree. But then, it's the same point.
You're basically jazzy. Don't you see that? You're basically jazzy. You got sour grapes, fatty.
Hello?
Hello?
He's not fat. And he's not like Jazzy. They're both different.
He's not? I've seen pictures of him. He's Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, this guy.
Well, let him. Sorry, Pomelo.
Well, my point is there's a physical component to happiness. If you come on here and you got Jew hate, look at Prince. He's the exact opposite. He's a psychotic Muslim extremist in the gym, lifting weights, praying for the death of Jews. You see the difference there? That guy's actually dangerous. Keegan is going to cut his foot off, cutting his grass. So there's a big difference between people who, listen, I'm just saying that if you're going to waste your time on Jew hate statistics, like, you might as well be reading the fucking Bible, bro. Because if you're not, and you're not even doing that kind of communication on this app, like, I'm just saying, I'm getting angry over the fact that I wish you were actually communicating useful information for yourself, first of all. So you may not love yourself enough, Keegan.
Maybe, Jefferson. I don't know how much I don't know how much I take your advice, but I do appreciate. I guess I appreciate your comment.
Pomelo, third round.
I admit I don't like Jew men and Muslim men, but I like Muslim girls and Jewish girls.
Oh, which one do you prefer, the Muslim girls or the Jewish girls?
I like both of them equally, and I hate Muslim guys and Jew guys equally.
Oh, why? Because you're not as good? Or why do you hate them?
Because I'm afraid of them, that's why.
Oh, you are afraid of them, okay.
Yeah, but I'm not afraid of the girls.
you end up knocking up the Jewish women, you'll have little Julets, and then you'll be afraid of your own kids.
Yeah, and I'll keep my Jew daughters, but I'll not keep my Jew sons. I'll give them to you. You raise them.
Well, Keegan and Rick are here. Simon is here, so it's just a moment
This
before
is so
Johnny
disgusting.
pops up.
This is so disgusting. Whoever's talking like this, fuck you.
Hey, Hampton Spears.
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
Hampton Spears, can you live stream us on your YouTube, Hampton, please, and make us all famous?
Thomas says he's a comedian, so you need to laugh about his jokes. Otherwise, you will not have enough confidence to get on stage.
Hampton is such a hater. He's so exclusive. He can't share the wealth. He can't become a producer or director because
Why are you talking about Hampton now?
he's in the audience, and he should be putting all of us on YouTube because
You can make jokes about Jews, and some of them, yes, Jews will probably say they're anti-Semitic, but we will make them behind their back. We all do it. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you can make whatever jokes you want to make. Christians.
It's not, I don't think it's mean. You can make jokes about every group of people. I hear white jokes that, like Eddie Murphy Raw. I think that came out in the 80s. Like, he was roasting white people, and it was all really fucking funny. Like, it's just, I don't know. There's, I think
Thomas's thing there, like, wasn't really funny because he started off by saying, he wants to fuck Jewish girls, and he wants to fuck Muslims. I didn't fuck you. Okay, fine. He said, I don't know what he said. I said I like Jewish girls and Muslim girls. I said that I don't like Muslim guys and Jewish guys, why? Why is that, man? Why is that? Let me guess. If you don't have
I mean, I gotta agree with Thomas. Like, I love women. I mean, and I love all women. I don't care what the religion is.
Okay, but then the second part of,
But I also
if I
hate
marry a
Christian
Jewish
guys.
girl,
Christian
and
guys are
listen, if I marry a Jewish girl and I have a son, I'll get rid of him, but I'll keep the daughter. Why? Why do you want to keep the daughter?
Because I want to marry them off to the Christian guys.
Exactly.
Cheap bastards. Not Christian guys are bastards.
Well, yeah, but if they have children, if you have daughters, then your grandchildren will be Jewish too.
Yeah, I want to convert all the Christians
No,
to
it's just, he wants to, like, exactly. Starts off by saying he wants to fuck on have him have Jewish kids.
Hampton, can I just send you $200 to be my producer, director, talent agent for 48 hours? Come on, Hampton, make me famous.
I'm gonna be honest.
Maybe 2,000.
My experience with just my personal experience, so it's anecdotal. When it comes to Jewish women, for whatever reason, and obviously they're not going to be like the Orthodox Jews, because they're not usually fucking. They're usually married pretty young. But no, they seem to be more open, sexually and stuff. In other words, unlike a lot of, I don't want to use the term easy, but I just used the word open.
Listen, sex and sex magic and sex psychology and using sex and not doing drugs and not smoking. I mean, this is a good way. Sex is a good thing, and sex is a 3-letter word. All good things are 3-letter words. That's a fact.
What do you mean by open? I mean, do you mean that they are bi or try or something like that? What do you mean open?
Open, in other words, they're not as they don't seem as dogmatic about views on sex like a lot of people who are, I don't know, maybe raised Catholic are.
So they'll do anal?
I didn't say that.
I would say that, I'm not opposed to anybody's private orgasms, but I would just say that the symbol in Judaism is that when a man and a woman is united, that's when you see the Blessed Holy Ancient One. So I just feel bad for gay people that they don't get to see God.
I'm okay. I'm good. Okay, I have a question though.
But gay sex is 2 3-letter words.
Do straight men like how women look in hijabs?
No. The fuck you want to be able to see more of a woman to find her attractive. That's the whole reason behind the fucking hijab. No, that's the whole reason behind it is to fucking cover them up so men won't lust after them.
Right,
That's.
But Pepe, I'm telling you, I used to work at a billing company that worked for foreign companies, whatever, and I had this go in there. Bang Bros, they had women
Yeah, but they're appealing to a certain group of people.
They literally had women in hijabs. It might be a billing company that worked for adult websites and had to troubleshoot. And Bang Bros had women of a hijab with semen all over her face.
Yeah, I know, but it's also a meme, though, dude. But it's also kind of a way. It's in a way it's like comedic, but it's also like I'm
It's
sure there are
branding.
Middle Eastern men that it will resonate with them because they probably think like instead of like Westerners where we're like, oh, that girl's hot, I'd love to stick my dick in her face.
It's
There's
like
probably
it's
Muslim
putting bags on people's
guys
head.
that
It's
are
bag
like, oh
porn.
my god, I would love to stick my dick in that hijab woman's mouth.
Did you say bank bros? Did you say bank bros?
Yes, okay, we don't need to make it that specific, okay?
But isn't that
Mia
insane?
Khalifa.
The reason for modesty is the evil eye or jealousy. It's not the other thing. So just saying.
I get it. It's a kink. It's basically lingerie now at this point. And Mia Khalifa has been seen billions of times, and yet some ferocious Jewish mother goes up to that Jew-hating bitch at an airport and says, I love Israel. I love my Jewish people. Fuck you, you terrorist Muslim bitch. You pornographic fucking hoe.
Is she Muslim or Christian?
She's Muslim.
I think she's Christian.
No, she sounds like a Hindu though.
No, Mia
No,
Khalifa
she's
is a very popular porn star. Billions of people around the world have seen her
ISIS
hijab porn video.
ISIS put a what do you call that on when they put a price on, or a death order on your head?
Fatwa?
Yeah, fatwa. They ordered a whole bunch of them after she filmed that porno with her wearing a hijab.
Yeah, she must be Muslim then, because that's why they want to kill her.
Exactly.
Salman Rushdie wasn't Muslim, and they still wanted to kill him for that book.
Salman Rushdie is Muslim. That's why they want to kill her.
No,
It's not. Dude, it's not fatwa. It's not fatwa. It's fatwat.
Oh, whatever.
Well, the point is, there is nothing more dangerous than two things in this planet. Do you know what they are, Keegan?
What are they?
Well, one of them you can't give a job or a black eye to. The other one, you know, they come from the East and their master's name is Mo. They always want Mo.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's up?
Mia Khalifa was raised Catholic. She's from like that region of the world.
She's from Palestine. I mean, isn't she from like Lebanon? Lebanese originally?
She's Lebanese Christian. That's why her and Ad look so much alike.
Catholic girls are wild, man.
Oh, Catholic girls are easy hoes. I trust me. I went to a Catholic school, Catholic high school.
Yeah, you said.
Most of them.
Catholic girls are wild.
Most of them.
I'm gonna kick out this bitch.
Well, there's
almost half of the kids, I would say, because they were kids, like freshman year had, you know, maybe about half of them lost their virginity by second.
Because you found some of them doesn't mean that we're all the same.
Well, to be fair, my high school was a little more than half.
You sound easy though.
So a little more than half of my school was half Mexican. We need to take that into consideration because they breed earlier and like rabbits.
No.
Well, there's a common see. There's a movie called UFC with or UCF with Weird Al Yankovic, and it's called God damn it. Anyways, it's called Catholic High School Girls in Trouble, and it's part of like this skit movie called Kentucky Fried Chicken. Have you ever seen it?
No,
the movie's called UHF.
UHF? No, I didn't actually mean UHF. My bad. It's a different film. It's a cult classic in America called the Kentucky Fried Movie, and there's a skit in there. I'll get the link. I'll put it in the chat. But it's called Catholic High School Girls in Trouble.
That sounds very racist.
Hey, Pepe.
I hate Muslims and Jews.
Hey, Pepe, you're Summation.
I told you Johnny would be here. I told you Johnny would come.
Why is it incorrect?
Only for the simple reason that preachers' daughters were known to be wilder because of repression. You know, if they're too heavy-handed and they don't give them any freedom, the first thing they do is rebel.
Well, I would say I don't know. It's like I don't know what they were doing in public high school freshman year. I'd say by sophomore year. So I got kicked out of Catholic school. The end of my freshman year.
What did you do?
Just too many small things. I actually got kicked out of
You have
several.
like a crush on a priest or something?
Hold on. I got kicked out of many high
I
schools.
have a question for this guy.
No,
Would you remove
don't
me?
derail. Don't derail. These are interrupting too much.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm just wondering why you removed me from the previous one.
Everyone doesn't
All
want
right.
you. You're
So
Helicopter, shut the fuck up, okay?
So, yeah, I will say though that my very first day, literally my very first day at a public high school, there was a guy who was a couple years older than me, got kicked out of another high school as well, and we're in an art class where they had the slanted desks. And then he ends up, putting out some cocaine, and he snorts a line, and he's like, "Do you want some?" And I'm like, what the fuck? And the slanted desk, like, they couldn't see us. And I would say that even though people did drugs like LSD and pot and stuff in the Catholic high school, drugs were like super fucking You see, like, this was like an upper middle class area, so it's like white kids who could afford drugs basically. And so a lot of drugs.
You're gonna make me puke on my food, I just say.
Kids fucking all the time. Then I got kicked out of like that school.
Why do white people smoke so much joints? Why do white people take a lot of drugs?
I know that.
Well, let's not look to the past, Pepe. Let's look to a beautiful future. What is the future that you see for America and for your clown house friends, Pepe?
I think America.
Like, how is anal compared to like pussy sex?
It's tighter. That's all I'll say. No,
is it possible? I don't know.
Why do white people take drugs all the time?
It's literally tighter, probably uncomfortable for most women, you know.
Hey, it's safe. You can't get pregnant, right? Don't straight people use it for control.
No, I never did.
That's true. If you take drugs and have sex, you can't get pregnant.
If your woman is not a slut in the bed, then she's not
Those
the right
people like you sand niggers don't do that shit too. You sand niggers do that shit all the time to hijabis. Fucking prostitutes, like that are wearing socks. They're literally.
Who are you talking to? Yo, I agree, Miss Hakarat. That's a fact.
Right? If she's not a slut,
I literally live in
bed.
Oh my God, no one's listening to you, Thomas. You're speaking, and literally nobody is listening.
Ruboino Shaloiloim, Issa and Pepe, I think
some real sluts. Like, I literally had, and luckily each time this happened, I was on the front of the choo-choo train.
What?
Do you think? Do you, Pepe?
Oh, I was saying that like each time, like, because there was a couple times where there was a choo-choo train, and I was luckily the first guy every time, or the two times. And I will just say, I have met some real fucking whores, like real legitimate whores. Oh my God.
Excuse me, Issa, Pepe, this is Jefferson Park News.
Well, see, this is after I went to a high school for like. Hold on. So this is like when I went to like a high school for really bad kids, like ones that were in and out of the system, like myself at the time.
You sound bad though.
Yeah, I'm not that. Yeah, I was always a class clown. I was never like a mean guy. So I wasn't like Billy Badass or anything. But anyways. But when it comes to, there's Mexicans, being the lovely people they are, they were into some pretty hood rat shit. And, choo-choo trains were one of them. And it was interesting.
What kind of nasty whore would let men do fucking trains on them? That is a nasty bitch.
They just want like approval, I think. And
Ew.
Wait, hold on.
Shame on you.
I'm slut shaming. I'm sorry. I am slut shaming. Any bitch that lets men run a train on her, she's a nasty bitch, and I said it. She's a nasty slut.
So, Pepe, that's funny because you were dating or sleeping with some pretty traumatized girls if they allowed you to do these.
That's so traumatizing. You get fucked in the booty hole all day.
Okay.
You get really fucking traumatized.
And
you get fucked in the booty hole by your own free will.
Alright, everybody say goodbye to the helicopter.
Helicopter.
Bye.
Well, when I said if your woman is not a slut in the bed, I meant like your wife, like your girlfriend.
Do you have a boyfriend, or do you just use that mouth to talk shit online all the time?
I have someone. Why?
Oh, are you in Palestine?
No, I'm not.
Where do you live, ma'am?
In Europe.
Why is this relevant?
Oh, you're in Europe? I don't know. I'm just curious.
No.
Well, I'm guessing you would not be having a man that you'd be fucking with if you were living in Palestine, for example.
I was born and raised in Sweden.
But you sound Russian though. Are you Russian?
No. I live in Sweden.
Listen, Pepe, I love Pepe's alpha energy. I gotta give it up to Pepe that like for years, Pepe has been the dominant conditioning factor in Clown House. I want to talk about social audio Clown House conditioning. Congrats, Pepe. I'm sending you a Clown House award. Excuse me, grown men are speaking here. Grown men are speaking here. Pepe, you are number one in my book. Issa, you're number one, baby.
What a fucking thank you, honey. I just want to say something to this fag. Listen to me.
That's just like my grandfather being from Nigeria and me being born here and was like, I'm Nigerian. No, the fuck.
Are you fucking disgusting, you piece of shit? Nobody's talking to you, okay? Hampton,
Okay,
nobody's
babe.
fucking talking to you. Like, shut the fuck up and mind your own business.
I like Swedish
Okay,
cinnamon.
honey.
I like Swedish cinnamon.
Before I fucking smack the shit out of you.
Can your man tame you?
Yes, Lisa.
Miss Hardcut, why do you hate Hampton?
He's like on to me all the time. He called me a whore last time in the room.
Because you were very mean to me.
I was not. Hold on. I was
Tell that
not
dirty
mean
faggot
to
to
you.
shove a big double XL BBC in his fat fucking game out.
I think he will actually like it. But you know what? I was not even rude to him. I was just addressing some stuff, and then he called me a whore. And everyone in the room told him not to do this, but you know.
That's not nice, Hampton.
Our version of events is not accurate. There was much more to this.
No, it is true. Do you want me to ping some people here?
No.
Yeah, he's so annoying. Like,
why are you trying to get involved with a gay guy in drama? You know,
no, I didn't even talk. Hold on,
like little
Pepe.
really
Pepe, you
chatty.
were asking me some questions. I answered you, but this guy literally felt that he wanted to include himself as usual. So